Hey, thanks for joining me. I'm Doug Snyder. This is Intimacy with God Ministries. It's Thought Conditioner. And the word for today is supply. Supply. I have 3 stories for you. The first story is, and they're all actually when I was back in Calgary with my wife and we were younger. And this particular story happened when we were in Calgary, or in Banff, Canada, and we were church planting in Alberta, in the town of Calgary, northwest quadrant. And you know, church planters don't make a fortune. We were taken care of, but we did not have a lot of extra money, and so it was always a treat when our folks came up because they would take us out to dinner, or in this case they took us to Banff Springs Hotel, which is kind of a castle. It was a castle, beautiful resort place, and Beth and I were staying there thanks to Mom and Dad, and we happened to be down in the very lowest level, which I understand was where formerly the maids used to work, and they would walk around underneath the castle to different places. So we were standing in the basement, which is a lower ceilinged, very narrow hallway, and it had been renovated, and they put businesses in that lower area so you could go down and shop. And the businesses were small because it was a small area. And as we were talking, we were debating the fact, should we go out to get something to eat in the restaurant and put it on the room bill, just assume that our folks would pay for it. And so we had this discussion. Neither of us were on the same side or the other side. We just were talking about, well, should we? Is it right to do this? And it struck me while we were talking. I said, you know, God could put a $10 bill on my toe if he wanted to. I mean, he can supply that for us. And so we continued talking a few more minutes, and at one point I looked down to the floor, down to my feet, and guess what was on my toe? Literally, on my toe was a $10 bill. Just what I'd said a few minutes earlier, that God could supply if he wanted to. So I picked up that $10 bill off my toe and showed my wife. We both had expressions of awe. And just to be sure, I took that $10 bill to the surrounding businesses that were still open, and I brought that in and I said, do you hear of any customer complaining about losing $10, or did you happen to lose $10 in a transaction today? And it would have been easy for one of them to say, oh yeah, right, I missed $10, but none of them did. And so God supplied. It was, in that case, it wasn't a need, it was simply a want to go have a piece of pie or something, or share a piece of pie. And $10 back then was something. But anyway, so there was $10. That was where God supplied. Story number 2. After I had left church planting at this particular church, it was even tighter because we were in transition. I was working at a job that was lower paying, and we didn't have a lot of extra. And so one day when I went outside, I went to the back of my car, and what I found was a ball at the back of my tire on street side. So not curbside, but street side. And I picked up that ball or wad, which looked like a piece of paper, that had been wadded up, only it was about just under $70 in cash that was wadded up into a ball at the back tire of my car. Now, how that got there, no idea. I took that wad of cash and I went up and down the street and said, did you hear of a paper boy or a paper girl that said they lost money in a transaction or picking up papers? None of them did. So we got another $70. Then, story number 3. Also during that same period when we were trying to make ends meet, we were very short one month, and maybe several months, but one month in particular. And I remember that the mortgage on our home that we had purchased came due. And so both Beth and I just stood resolute in faith in God that he'd supply. I went out to the mailbox and opened up the mailbox, and in the mailbox was a check from the States from some person, I don't even remember who, and it wasn't a normal supporter of ours, for the exact amount to the penny for what was due in our mortgage that month. So all I wanted to do is give you 3 stories that in my life where God had supplied, and that Bible verse in Philippians 4:19 had been executed by His perfect timing in His perfect will, and it met our needs. And I want to encourage you, if you have a need, you can trust God, whatever the need is. If it's financial, or maybe it's reconciliation, or maybe it's patience, or maybe it's physical pain or emotional pain, God will supply all your needs according to His riches. All right. Well, this is Doug Snyder. It's been fun to chat with you. Please respond, post a comment, maybe your own story. I'd love to put it on there. And subscribe to the channel and share with others that may need it. We'll see you next week.